Hello, PlatformCon, and welcome. You're going to be joining us for a panel discussion on developer portals in 2025, from service catalogs to intelligent interfaces. I'm Heather Joslyn, editor-in-chief of the Newsstack, which you can find online at thenewsstack.io. We cover software development at scale, including the entire life cycle from development to
All right.
Okay.
She's back.
Sorry, we're having a heat wave where I am, and our internet is a little wonky. But we're going to get started by introducing you to our panel. First up, we have Pia Nilsson. Pia, can you tell us what you do?
Hi, so I'm Pia Nilsson. I am GM for Backstage, and I lead the developer experience at Spotify.
Excellent. And we're also joined by Lambros Charissis. Lambros, can you tell us what you do?
Sure, yeah. Hey, nice to meet you all. My name is Lambros. I work in product in our platform teams here at Wise, also focused on developer experience. I've seen the developer portal journey from the very beginning over the last kind of 4 years to adoption and now being the most used internal tool. So yeah, happy to be here and to share some of our learnings and discuss.
Great. And we're also joined by Chris Westerhold. Chris, can you tell us what you do?
Hey, everyone. Chris Westerhold. I am one of the global practice directors here at ThoughtWorks, focusing on kind of engineering excellence, AI-first software engineering transformation, which includes things like a good developer portal, amongst other things. And I've been working with the great folks at Spotify and others for a number of years on portals. So really, really excited to have the conversation today.
Excellent. So let's start with a little lightning round here. How do you define a developer portal, and how is it different from a service catalog? Lambros, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there are quite different things. I think we can have one without the other. I think this is important to mention. So Dev Portal for us, we basically use it to expose our internal platform to our users and also kind of drive platform actions across our developer teams. I think you typically have a catalog as part of Dev Portal because our users are organized in teams, of course, and they own components and services. So a lot of what we do, what we provide, is tailored towards teams and software or services. So it makes sense to organize a Dev Portal around this. But I wouldn't say you have to start with it, right? If it's not the biggest pain. But yeah, I think this is how we define Dev Portal here at Wise.
Pia, would you like to take the next shot?
Absolutely. So I think. Hello, Heather.
Hello. I'm taking myself out of video to see if that helps the situation, but I'm still here.
Cool. So I think I really second what Lambros just said. I think the service catalog is a feature of a developer portal. Developer portal is so much more. It's how you drive developer experience at your company. It's all the best practices. It's nudging everyone. It's sort of the exposing, as Lambros said, exposing the products also for each other, probably through MCPs, but sort of it's the whole organization of how do you run an R&D organization that is sort of exposed and nudged with the developer portal. And doing that, you kind of need a catalog of your components, of course.
Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really look at it as, it's that experience layer that sits in front of this really complex set of things. And, engineering is getting more and more and more complex, and like, how do you start to enable people with the experiences to get the job done that they're trying to accomplish? And a service catalog is one way of doing that, but in and of itself, it's not really solving a problem. It's what do you put into it? What are the features that are there? How do you enable certain use cases? And how do you fit those use cases into the value stream that people are actually executing against? And when I think of good design and enablement of kind of just excellent engineering, a developer portal really is a key part of that. And is that, that town square, that single pane of glass, like whatever words you want to use as this kind of entry point to a lot of really complex topics.
Continuing with Chris, what do you feel is driving interest in portals generally? And in addition, I mean, we know platform engineering has been gaining in attention the last few years, but specifically with portals, I mean, what do you feel is driving it?
I think it's really the complexity of software development now. I mean, you've seen, the rise of cloud, distributed architectures, microservices, multi-cloud, on-prem. You now have, dozens potentially of kind of DevSecOps tools and things you need inside of your pipelines. You have all of this information that's spread out all over. And how do you start to bring some level of normalcy to that complexity? How do you start to rein some of that in? And, there's not a good way of removing that complexity because it's what needs to happen to get the job done. But you can't abstract away that complexity, lowering cognitive load, and allow people to be able to really start to, enable themselves to work on the things that are the hard problems. And these kind of known knowns, you can start to now extract away. And I think whether it's developer portals, platform engineering in general, I think those two things combined to be that kind of layer that can do those types of things.
Pia, do you have any additional thoughts about what might be driving the interest in portals?
I think that was great. I just agree with what Chris said, and I think the urgency of developer portals, I think, comes from the realization in the world that sort of Chris spoke to now, which is developers have 10 times as much nowadays to do, and they need to be 20 times as effective because for the next 10x, which is certainly already here with AI sort of. So we have to 10x every single person working in our R&D organization. We already know that, and we have seen that developer portals are very promising. We have so many evidence from all kinds of companies, from small to large, that this actually drives developer effectiveness and satisfaction, which is also really important for productivity.
Right, the whole developer joy concept of of creating a frictionless experience. Also, you mentioned the complexity. I mean, the tool. There's so many tools to choose from, and a friend, someone who writes for us, once said that the CNCF landscape is like the world's most difficult eye exam because there's so many things on there. Lambros, what do you? How should an organization determine what their dev portal should include?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it started with a concrete kind of user need. We do surveys for engineers, and there was a pain point around it's hard to find things, documentation, discoverability, like who owns something. And that was kind of the trigger for us to look into dev portals. But I think to understand what to add to it, it also, for us, I think it's really cool to see how it aligns with our company strategy. It's really interesting. When we started Dev Portal, it was all about productivity. How can we grow wise, hire more engineers, without slowing down, growing without slowing down as a company. Now, after this, it was all about compliance. We went public, we got more licenses and new countries. So it was all about how can we drive compliance across the company, like asset management and so on. Now, Dev Portal again helped us a lot because you kind of funnel everything through that. And then the next kind of big strategic theme was cost reduction. And then how can we reduce cost? In each of those strategic initiatives, Dev Portal kind of really helped us because you have everyone's attention, right? This is the great thing. Everybody is already there. So you can really drive those programs. In the cost example, we could expose cost anomalies or expose if your team's cost increased or not. So I think it's really a kind of a mixture of the concrete user needs or pain points and how big are they, and can we somehow align this with the company strategy and drive strategic initiatives across engineering. That's what I've seen at Wise.
What about Chris? Do you have thoughts about how you should determine what should be in that dev portal?
Yeah, I'll play the anti what Lambros was just saying. I will almost bet that what you think you need to put into there is probably wrong.
Oh,
and
wow.
Making the assumption of what you think your end users' problems are is a great way to spend a lot of money without really getting the adoption and the realization of value. And I'll double down on what Lambros said with surveys, qualitative, quantitative data, feedback, doing studies, understanding where the waste and friction is inside of your organization. Like all of those really lead towards using a developer portal as an enabler to help fix those. And I think it was great to hear your kind of the transitions you've made through the journey at Wise, where I was like, oh, it was this problem. Great. Here's how we can leverage this as a tool, as an enabler. Now those needs have changed. Great. How do I use it as an enabler? And that to me really is the power of a tool like a developer portal. And I think one of the benefits that Backstage brings, it's super modular. It can meet you where you are. Like you can do the things that you need necessary to kind of drive that into your organization. And people ask me kind of the question of what should I build into my developer portal all the time, and I'll tell you need one, but I can't tell you what the actual thing is you need to build. You probably need, at some point, will need a service catalog. You will definitely need some kind of search. You will definitely need some kind of template, but I can't tell you what that is. Your engineering community will. And building that kind of continuous improvement engine and having these good experience layers is the key towards actually realizing value.
How do you I want to talk about Backstage in a moment, but and this could be a question for maybe, I don't know if Pia wants to take this up, or Chris or Lambros, but how do you find out what the developers need? I mean, do you do a survey? Do you do interviews? Do you do all these things?
Oh, those are the ways, I would say, but also there's quantitative data that I think is super important, especially for setting your success metrics, of course, for all your developer experience initiatives, developer portal being one of them. So, but really, I kind of want to both be saying yes to surveys and qualitative data, but you kind of also need to have the opposite of that. What I mean is sometimes our customer, like our internal customers, our developers, the developer teams, they don't exactly know what they need. So only asking them, only looking at the data is actually looking in the rear view mirror, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it is. But we also need to be like brave and visionary. What do we believe in for the next 5 years? Mm-hmm. We believe in that the infrastructure space will be static. We know the players. These will be the same in 5 years. Or obviously at this point is like, of course we don't. So what do we need to build for? So what is our vision for DevX? So and how, like I like platform organizations to set the target. What speed increase are you looking for, and exactly how are you going to measure it? And then you work your way backwards. So we had like 3 years ago, we had like, we're going to 2x the speed of every single person in R&D. 2x. And then we had to work our way backwards and like, well, how are we going to accomplish that? So I think then you push yourself to become also visionary. So you don't only look in, like ask people or ask around and check the data, but you also look forward.
I think if you only paid attention to surveys,
Mhm.
you know, we would have faster horses and not cars and trucks and trains and all of those other things. Like, it's very valuable. Like, I like to think about it as like you need both bottom up and top down. Like, you need bottom up to understand where the problems are, what exists, what's the current state of things. And then you need that kind of top down strategic vision, long-term thinking, you know, where are you going as a company? What are the things that you want to do? And then it's the merging of those two things together that says, well, I can alleviate this potential pain point that's going to drive better productivity, better joy, better experience.
Mhm.
But also I need to be looking forward and saying, oh, well, how is AI changing the landscape? How are, you know, other, like, people are still moving on to the cloud and still figuring out good CI/CD practices. Like, what is the thing that actually makes the most sense strategically, while still trying to figure out, you know, the other bits that are getting in there? And, you know, falling on any one of those two sides has some value, but it's really the combination of both that you can really start to strategically change and work.
I don't think anybody asked for DevPort, right? When we did the survey initially, you get some pointers, right? So something is wrong around like documentation. We're slowing down overall. And you look at the market, you look at tech trends, you look at other kind of, you know, KPIs that you want to drive. You look at the company strategy, and then you kind of digest all of this, and then you have to make some big bets, really, right? And you can be wrong, right? So you have to make sure you have some good validation as well around this. But yeah, no, I fully agree. You have to look at strategic direction. You have to look at some strong KPIs, outcome-based KPIs, and also surveys to kind of, you know, explain a bit more about the why.
So in a way, you have to solve the today problems, but look ahead to the tomorrow problems and anticipate that and solving those. I want to get back, talk a little bit about best practices. What's some of the must-haves we talked that you might want to have in a portal, but let's first talk about Backstage, which is the open source framework for building portals that originated at Spotify, Pia's company. And Pia, can you tell us why you think Backstage is caught on?
Well, Backstage, I think there are many reasons actually why Backstage caught on, I think, and I mean, so many in the community can speak to this nowadays. But to sort of boil it down, it solves a really important problem. That's the sort of the gist of it, right? It solves a really important problem, and that is powerful. So unifying all of the infrastructure, of course the tooling, but the services and the workflows, so that you can, and the documentation obviously, and actions that can be taken on these products. If you expose all of that to your engineering organization, that is powerful. So I think that's the real reason. And then, of course, what Chris said before, it's so extensible, which is going to be my sort of like second point in why has it caught on. I think really extensibility is the secret sauce that is sort of understated almost about Backstage, I feel, because it is why we made it so extensible. It's a cultural thing. And I think it worked for so many other companies as well. We had to make it extensible because we are a super autonomous organization, a company. So we really needed to decentralize and empower teams so that they would start finding value in Backstage by producing that value into it through building plugins, obviously. So the extensibility, we had to do it for ourselves, and that's why it became so successful internally, organically. But this is also, I believe, why it has caught on for and worked for so many out there in the community, because they can do the same. This is a nice beta, so to speak. Like you can take, as in, I'm a climber. Sorry, it's a nice prototype of like how you should do it. It's a recipe of how you should do it. Like you should empower all of the domain teams so they build stuff into it, and then you can really have you can solve the real problems. Like Lambros was saying, what are the real problems? Well, only the people in the organization will tell you. It's not like an IDP vendor is going to have the right answer for you. So,
is there anything new with regard to Backstage that you'd want to spotlight? Anything?
Absolutely. So I'd love if people could go and have a look at the new front end system, because we have released it since long now, and it's about to become a GA. So we would love you to have a look, because then you can have your components declaratively declare your components through infra instead of code, which is a great engineering best practice. So we would love everyone to adopt. And then, of course, start adding your MCP's servers into the catalog, because the catalog is flexible. You can add your MCP servers as an API, a kind API type MCP. And we recently released also the actions and the action registry, so that if you have a plugin, you can register an action for that plugin into the action registry. And then that's wrapped with the MCP server, so you expose your plugin actions in an orderly manner. So that's pretty cool stuff. I think it's going to be super useful for the community. So it would be fantastic to see people adopt it.
Excellent, Chris. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was gonna add something there. Like I think, when I think about Backstage, like I know we call it a developer portal, but I really like to think about it as a framework to essentially build your own developer portal. It's like using React instead of using vanilla JavaScript, and it can get you where you want to go, and without needing to you don't have to build those fundamental nuts and bolts. It provides a lot of that for you, and now it can meet you where you want to go. And like I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen this rise of it so quickly, is that everybody has their own unique sets of problems and challenges and different tooling and different just ways of working in general. Like, yes, we're all doing custom software development, but we're all doing it a little bit differently. And when you think about that framework, it has those core kind of features to it, but you can change them. You can modify them. You can have them fit your needs. Do you want to put data in there? Sure. Do you want to, kind of catalog anything that, that you have inside of your organization? Yeah, you can absolutely do that. And, that I think is the true power that is going to be really difficult to, for alternatives to try to keep up with.
So just to add to this, I think when our DevX team for the first time, looked at Backstage and, created the first POC, there was quite a bit of disillusionment, right? In the sense that it is bare, right? It doesn't provide any value in the beginning. I think we weren't aware of that. So all the hard work starts now, right? So how do you get high quality, accurate data in that? How do you keep it maintained? How do create adoption and so on? So I think anybody who looks at Backstage and thinks about adopting it, just be aware that it is it's really bare. So you have to do a lot of the hard lifting yourself, right? After the open source framework is in place. Yeah.
So that brings us to there are also alternative portals that have emerged. What might be some of the challenges with Backstage that might make you consider other options, or what might be some use cases where maybe Backstage there might be additional choices to consider? You mentioned like what if you're not prepared to build your own customized, you don't have the skills in house or whatever to build your own customized portal using Backstage as a framework, for example.
Do you want me to take that, or didn't hear?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you,
I can get us started.
Okay.
So I think, this is so well put by Lambros. It's so true. So I like to say, like if you were to buy build an IDE right now, you would build it on VS Code, wouldn't you? So Backstage is the VS Code for IDPs in my view. That still means it's like Lambros said, it's a framework. And you gotta put in all of your muscles to create your own developer portal. So over the years, SaaS vendors have recognized this gap and are offering SaaS products to solve and mitigate for this for customers, which I think is a great idea. So Spotify is now also offering a SaaS offer because we have been asked for 5 years now to build one, and now we have shipped that. So because I do think it's like we still need the actual customer to identify what are the developer experience challenges for us. And as we heard, they shift and they differ. But then to not have to maintain and build the nuts and bolts, that's pretty nice. Plus, I think now that we are 5 years in for Backstage, I hear very many friends and adopters say like, yeah, the first 2 years were fantastic with Backstage. We scaffolded our software templates. We standardized some of our fleet. It's great, and we have self-service now for this and this. And but then after 1.5 years, 2 years maybe, we were in the place where we didn't want to scale the little team owning Backstage, and we couldn't keep up with the monthly releases from Spotify with all of these features monthly. So we were behind. Many of our adopters are like 10, 12 versions behind. It's not great. And we would love for them to get up to the latest. But this is hard work. And they, of course, the company, and we agree, these people are critical platform engineers. They need to work on higher value developer experience problems, that you leverage Backstage as the vehicle for this change, instead of maintaining and figuring out the plugin architecture and solving bugs on the actual portal. So it's sort of, I think that's what we are gonna see now when we have so many adopters, that they're gonna look for fast tracking themselves.
I want to ask a little bit about best practices. What we talked about how you would go about deciding what's in a portal, but have you seen any examples of just about every dev portal you've seen has a certain feature in it, or a certain tool in it? Are there certain sort of must-haves that you have seen across organizations, across teams?
I haven't seen one, so
Good.
maybe Chris or Pia can take that one.
Chris, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen lots of I've seen lots of good implementations of Backstage, and I've seen lots of not so great implementations of Backstage. It's a double-edged sword, like Pia was just kind of saying, of like, you have to build it, you have to maintain it. But like, to me, this goes back to use cases, right? Like, I can tell you need a catalog. I can tell you're going to need templates. I can tell you're going to need like AI-powered knowledge management and search. Like, those are all things you 100% will need, but it's not about the features. It's about the use cases in which you're enabling inside of those features. And, I have had a number of people come to me and they like, I can't get anybody to use any of these platforms. And this isn't a Backstage thing or a port or an ops level or anybody. It's, I spent X amount of time and X amount of dollars building this thing, and now I can't get anybody to use it. And, because you're focused around features. And I can put data products in here. Okay, well, is that a thing that you actually need? Is it a thing that people want? And, by taking this really grassroots approach of identifying that problem and then drawing it all the way through, and, and that goes in and outside of the bounds of your developer portal. It includes platform, it includes your IDE, it includes all of these other things. Like, I've also seen a lot of people put stuff into Backstage that had no business being there. And so, like, I think you've had this problem inside of Spotify as well, Pia, where like it became the easy place to build something, so people built it there, and it didn't really have a good reason to be there. And so, all of these products, developer portals, platforms, like all of the tools that we have, you cannot just buy them and put them on the shelf. You have to have somebody to own them, to configure them, to figure out the use case, to sunset them if necessary, to replace them with something different. And, that's the methodology of that continuous improvement and the removal of kind of tech debt. To me, focusing on any one feature is just the wrong kind of question that's going to lead you down a road that you're not going to like in a year or two.
So focus on the problem, not
right.
Crafting a solution and then finding a problem to apply it to.
That's right. Relentless focus on the end user and the problem in which they have. And if you solve a problem, a true problem, you will have no issue with adoption. People will be beating down your door for these new sets of features, and you're going to have to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't scale this to N number of people. We need to make sure that we get this going. And if you have that type of problem, you're doing it correctly.
I think one thing I've seen in a lot of dev portals, just doing that kind of analysis of outside wise, and I think where a dev portal is just really uniquely placed is to kind of gamify adoption of best practices, really, right? There isn't really any other place where you can do that so easy, right? And with so much impact as dev portal. So we have an internal service health check. We also drive kind of platform campaigns across the company using dev portal. Security vulnerabilities, like are there any SLAs that are in violation? So I think for those things, kind of gamifying and comparing and driving those programs, I think that is for me, this is a must-have. And if you have a dev portal, this is where you really can have that impact to meet those strategic goals, right, for your company.
We have an audience question. I just wanted to, before we go forward, David is asking, where do most teams deploy Backstage in EC2, EKS? I am planning to use it as an IDP so that our team can provision EKS clusters, etc. So where do most teams that in your experience deploy Backstage?
Doesn't matter. This is not a compute heavy service. So this is really a great question. So I think many people might have these questions. So I just want to assure you, you can deploy it anywhere.
One suggestion I would add to that is like decouple the front end and back end are the only. That's the only and deploy those separately. It doesn't scale the way that you would expect it to once you start getting to a number of users. So I wouldn't that's my only suggestion. If it's EKS, ECS, it really doesn't matter.
Speaking of portals and on an ongoing basis, who in your opinion in an organization should own the maintenance and updating of dev portals? Should it be the platform team? Should it be some other?
I can share the model we have advised. I'm not sure if it's the best one, but we have a DevX team that owns the framework and the core of Backstage. We use Backstage, and then we have teams like security, and they own the security plugin, right, for Backstage. We have a cost team, and they built the cost plugin. So there is definitely, it's a challenge, right? Because you go to the SecOps team or AppSec team and tell them, on front end, they're like, what? We don't have any developers for front ends. Like there's always a bit of hesitation there, though it's not always super smooth. So I think the core team has to do their homework and provide good documentation and how-tos, right? And kind of help them a little bit to get started. But I think it's been working okay for us, this model.
I see that model work. You have to have the central control of the core and then federated ownership of the plugins. What you don't want to see is something I saw not too long ago where they had a 45-person Backstage team. And, you might be doing something wrong. And the problem was what happens is they took on all of the problems of the organization. And they were building all of the different plugins and modifying, and all of a sudden they have backlogs for all of these different plugins. And people will gladly give you their problems if you're willing to take them. And if you're not careful with some of these plugins, you can end up in that scenario before you know it. And so building out that right structure that says, hey, here's the core, here's how you can work with it, here's how you can contribute to it, here's the standards that we would expect. And now if you have a problem to solve, great. You can contribute that back, and hopefully that'll, rise the tide and lift all boats. And that to me, I think is exactly right. I don't know how you feel about that, Pia.
This is a great point, Chris. I really want to emphasize also what Lambros said. That's the structure you should adopt, what Lambros described. I really believe in that. Because the point of all of this, right, is to increase productivity. So the platform team owning Backstage may not be the bottleneck. So you gotta architect your organization to not be the bottleneck. Just like Lambros and Chris have been saying here. That's super important. Or else it doesn't matter how skillfully you build the Backstage, your instance. You're always gonna be slower than the business side.
Obviously AI is the thing, the topic right now in tech. What are some of the, and maybe we can just go around the horn, maybe Lambros can start us off. What are some of the opportunities and challenges AI is bringing into the developer portal space?
Yeah, one obvious use case we're currently looking at is search, right? I think it was mentioned earlier, I think by Chris as well. So, we have like a lot of different documentation sources. Like we have Confluence, we have Tech Docs, GitHub, we have Slack. A lot of stuff is in Slack as well, right? So we have search and Backstage, but yeah, it works, but it can still be quite painful. So an obvious use case is to embed all the information and provide an AI powered search. I think this is going to have a massive productivity boosts. We always see, let's say, in Confluence with those AI plugins, which are super helpful. I think this is the big one I see. Now, there's also things like generating API docs based on AI and adding them to Dev Portal. But yeah, those are kind of our top two use cases we're looking at.
I've seen a lot of the kind of thinking around, especially some of the plugins, which are just, hey, take information from here and kind of display a summary or aggregate of that information into a plugin in Backstage. Like, I think I've seen a lot of questions around, do you still need some of that anymore? And, you've kind of made an assumption of what somebody might want to see when it comes to CI/CD pipeline information or whatever. And you've just kind of graphically displayed that because this is what we think you might want. Like, do you still need to do that in the future? Maybe, maybe not. But you can now, like, some of these models are starting to get quite good at, hey, go read this set of information that's there, reason about it in some way based on this prompt, and now give me some kind of a display that I can go ahead and show. And so instead of having these kind of pre-baked kind of front-end UI components, having a better data structure on the back end and having access to more information via MCP and via these other means is now going to give a broader set of data with more complete kind of use cases and, more direct action than just kind of a standalone, hey, here's a little chart of information or whatever.
Yeah, I think as you're saying, it's influencing everyone, not only the developer portal team, but also all of the platform engineering teams. So what we will be seeing and are already is the platform engineering teams will provide the MCP API for their tool, and that should be exposed in my view. Since I'm pro Backstage, I think you should publish that to the action registry so that anyone in your company can get hold of those actions, and then they can you kind of empower them to do whatever you think is okay to do with your product. So of course there comes a lot of interesting, challenging things around that, governance, none the least, security, compliance. But we know these things well, I think, in platform engineering organizations, so we can handle it. But they're super cool challenges, and I think one additional point is prompt engineering. I really love when I get from our AI platform inside of Backstage, which we also of course are offering commercially. I get prompts, so I don't have to even think about the prompts sometimes, at least, which is super helpful because spinning up certain things are sometimes complex, and I can just go to the prompt library. That's just nice, and I think we should hopefully see more of that across all of the companies. I think that's going to speed people up.
When you think about lowering cognitive load, I mean, it's not just about any of these other things. Like, prompts can get really complicated, especially when you're trying to do like prompt chaining or having a specific set of output results and those kinds of things. And you can build all of that into that prompt library. So the only thing I need to be concerned with is a relatively simple prompt around the problem that I'm having that now gets injected into that broader prompt and gives me back, the best type of result. And not only that, I think a new thing platform teams are going to be working on is model optimization around those. It's like, hey, this is the type of question you have. This is the type of data that's out there. What is the best model to use? And you can start to do like cost comparisons and lots of other things, but that's a new layer that platform teams are going to have to deal with, that I think tools like a developer portal are the front door into that. And is that, again, that experience layer that now enables all of these different bits across your organization.
We have one more reader audience member question, also from David. I don't know if this is the same David. I believe it might be. As the platform engineering team grows, how are teams tracking the changes to Backstage? Are the changes pushed to Git first, then create a pull request, and then deployed, merged to Backstage, or in some other way? Maybe Pia would be able to answer this.
Well, it depends on how you wish to set it all up.
Okay.
So if you are heavily working in compliance, you would want to have testers on all of the reviews. So you would have to set that up. But sort of in general, yes, this is what we do, for sure.
There's and also the question of mono repo versus distributed repos for the plugins, and this leans into this as well. Both can work. They just have their different sets of pros and cons. But this is quite a deep question that you could probably find some resources on it. But yes, this is generally the structure you want.
And we have about a minute left, so I'm going to ask a sort of a rapid fire question. Give me like one tip for increasing adoption of a portal within an organization.
Can I start?
Sure.
Deep functionality.
Hire a product manager to own your developer portal.
Yeah, hire me. I'm a PM. I think solve your problem, and also I think try to integrate existing front ends into it to funnel user journeys through Dev Portal. Right, this is going to really push adoption.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Pia Nilsson from Spotify, Lambros Charissis from Wise, and Chris Westerhold from ThoughtWorks. Thank you very much for joining us. And I apologize for our technical difficulties, but it looks like we were able to solve them and get through this. So I appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of PlatformCon.
Thank you.
Thank you.